Let's talk now to the Labour MP for Liverpool Wavertree, Luciana Berger. She sits on the Health and Social Care Committee, and that committee will this afternoon question the Minister for Suicide Prevention on the government's plans. Also with us in Bristol, Joy Hibbins, who is the founder of the charity Suicide Crisis. Thank you both for talking to us. First of all, Luciana Berger, this employing the latest technology such as artificial intelligence or predictive analytics to help identify those who are at risk. What do you think of that idea?
Well, it's definitely one thing that can be deployed. And what I would say is that in and of itself, it's a drop in the ocean in terms of how we should be contending with what is a very, very serious issue, and as you've rightly highlighted, is the greatest killer of men under the age of 50 in our country and the greatest killer of young people. Across the whole of the United Kingdom, 6,000 people take their lives every year. We should be doing everything possible to minimise that. And there's some very easy things that could be done very quickly. If you were to put into a search engine the term suicide, it's great to see some help support available at the start of those search returns. But equally, within that first page, you'll see different pages that will actually describe the methods that people could use, and we know that all the guidelines tell us that that's one thing that can make a massive difference, is that we shouldn't be promoting or making those readily available for people to learn about. So it's one tiny little aspect of the things that we should be looking at. And certainly we have seen some strides and some developments in recent years that have seen online social media companies do more to ensure that if people search for terms, that they have things like the Samaritans pop up and help numbers. But there's so much more that we need to be doing offline as well to be contending with this issue, to actually make sure that we have proper suicide prevention plans in place in local areas, that we have the funding to make it work, that we hold not just our National Health Service but our local authorities and our justice system in particular to account. And those are the kind of real tangible things that we need to see progress on that we haven't thus far.
Joy, is there a crisis in this country when it comes to suicide, would you say?
We tend not to talk in terms of there being a crisis. In terms of suicide prevention, we notice that there's a lot of emphasis on zero suicide within the NHS, and it's important to recognise that it's about more than the NHS. We run a suicide crisis centre in Gloucestershire which is independent from the NHS and have been running services for 5.5 years. We've never had a suicide of a client under our care, whether they've been under our care for a period of days, weeks or months. And we've been very pleased to share some of the things that we've learned as to why clients survive under our care with the Health Select Committee a couple of years ago.
So what would you say are the reasons why, Joy?
The reasons why clients under our care survive are multitude. We provide a combination of suicide crisis centre, home visits and emergency phone lines, because we recognised very early on that not everybody who is in crisis would get to our suicide crisis centre, and I've got no doubt that our ability to go out to people's homes at short notice has saved lives. We also work very differently from mental health services. It was my only experience under mental health crisis services in 2012 that showed me that there was a different approach needed, and in many ways I set up the opposite of what I experienced under mental health crisis services. Okay. So for example, a big team was involved, a different person from the crisis team coming out every day, so only 2 members of our team are involved. We openly care for our clients, and that's not incompatible with a professional relationship. I found the clinical distance under mental health services sometimes created a barrier, because when a person is approaching the point of suicide, they may well have detached and disconnected from everyone around them. It's like you have a kind of tunnel vision.
All right, I just want to ask Luciana, what do you think of those points that Joy has made?
I think Joy makes some really important points about how we focus on prevention, and how we've got a system at the moment, not through any clinical professional's fault, but at the moment it's so much geared to what we do when someone's in a crisis. When someone's at that very, very end point. We hear about crisis teams, but all the previous support that's been available in our communities to keep people well, that beyond the NHS, out of the NHS. So things like our community centres and our youth services and our children's centres for supporting young families, for example. You know, when those services are pared back or don't exist at all, it's no surprise that we see more people in a crisis, and that doesn't help the person affected, particularly if you know that they're at the point where they're considering taking their own life. And actually that kind of care is also very, very expensive. So in my view, we should be doing everything possible to take it out of the NHS and to think what we should be doing in our communities, in our workplaces, in our places of education to keep people well and to actually contend with what is, I agree, a crisis in our country of mental health.
Thank you both. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thanks for coming on the